Welcome, everyone, to today's episode. I have with me the most incredible and yet humble and heart-centered and magical practitioner, Dr. Chris Motley.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm really glad I'm here, and I can say the same for you. It's like a natural connection, and people are all heart, and I'm thankful to be here. I love being here at this conference, and just heartfelt but smart people here too. It's all in one. So
Brilliant.
Thank you.
Yeah. So something that I think is so beautifully unique about you that kind of matches the intro is how you look at a patient and all the various levels, and that you are someone that focuses on the energetic as well as mental, emotional, and everything. Talk a little bit about that.
I think one of the first things that we gel on is that when a person does come in, I always do look for the emotional basis, and I know other practitioners do that as well. Even at the conference, when we talk about signs and symptoms, like if the patient comes in and you can tell a particular sign on the face or their body language, or even the way they walk, their words, their history is always everything. And for me, though, when they come in, I'm listening to their history because they do tell their story. But if you can match it up with, like say, a sore shoulder or a sore hip, that's where you find their history, you get their appearance, and then you sort of match it to the Chinese acupuncture meridian line. I hope that makes sense. And then if you find where the body is contorted or shifted, you then know which part of the Chinese meridian system is altered. Then I just go to the organ, and then I find the emotion. And for me, I know I love structure. I've always been a structure guy. I like ligaments, tendons, muscles. But what I did find was when individuals would come in and you would find them having a sore hip, a sore leg, and you would dig around on that leg and it hurt, and they said that feels good. I always found that it always matched up with a certain acupuncture point. And then instead of just fixing it, I started to ask the questions about the emotions of the organ. So your gallbladder is off, and then I would ask, left side usually has to go with the father's DNA, right side with the mom. So I would just say, do you have resentment that's associated with your dad, or does he have resentment? And 9 times out of 10, they would say yes. So it sort of shifted my way of how to look at a patient, because when you do body work, and people love it, I love it, but you don't want it to get stale. But when you work at somebody's emotions, it's never the same story. It's always something different. So my mindset always went towards, how can I get the mental, emotional aspect of the body to actually unwind the fascia, to unwind their body? And that's a challenge. And I think that's a harder challenge than just doing structure work in a sense. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so it always makes you think more like these practitioners here, and we're always going for it because, a person could have mold in their colon or a mold in the liver. But is there an emotion in that organ that's made it weak, and the body sees it as a weak point? No fault to the body, just too much emotions to clean out. Infections know it. They'll get to an area that's weak. And so you start to put those 2 and 2 together. Then you get the labs and you can say, oh, okay, well, that coincides with what their emotions are saying. So that's how I like to look at it. I like to look at emotional basis first most of the time. Yeah.
So do you have in your belief or in your practice and what you've seen, do you know what maybe comes first, the chicken or the egg? Is it the emotion is there, and so then the mold is able to come and proliferate? Is it?
That's a great question. Well, I know a lot of people out there would disagree, but maybe they would agree. I first think that I look back in generational lines. And if a person, you'll see a kid with a parent, and they'll usually have the same organ dysfunctions as the parent. And if we look at it that way, I believe that it's emotional, somatic relationships that are passed on by the parent. So I already believe that a kid or a child, us, already have programmed beliefs that are passed. And, there's so many great speakers that talk about that, but I believe that. I think it's the basis of it. Whether we accentuate that belief by the environmental pattern we're in, that plays in it too. Because, there's times when you have 2 children and one doesn't have the problem, the other one does. And you realize, well, they grew up in a very hostile environment, and then the parents got divorced and this one didn't grow up in it. And they're different. So I believe that it is an emotional charge, an emotional field. And I think the infections start to follow that. One of the things I think is really interesting, and I won't take away from the combo, is that if you have an infection, let's say it's in the colon, and you have a lot of buildup and constipation with bloating, The thing is, like, in that organ, if the parent had the belief that they had to hold on to a lot of crap in their life, that everything's slow moving, it's not moving out of my life, I can't have a movement, the kid will have the same kind of energy in their colon. And then they get triggered like the parent would, and then their colon will shut down. And I really pay attention to what the parent goes through too. So if a parent brings a child in and they have this organ, I usually tell the parent to get on the table and let me check it real quick. I say, because they're not going to clear it if you don't clear it. So whatever you usually give to the kid, I sometimes give to the parent. So the chicken and the egg, I think infections, they say there's a lot of different aspects. The infection can get to the area that's sick because it's weak. Or if the organ is always working, it's tight and it's trying to hold on to the poop, and emotionally I'm tight, that colon gets stronger. It gets stronger at holding on to your stuff, your beliefs. And then the body's like, well, I can't keep holding on to that because the colon's going to get muscles and it's going to be really big. And I'm going to have a colon that's sticking out of my gut. So it'll allow the infections to go in there to eat up all the excess tissue. And it's symbiosis. And after a while, I want to clear out all the infections, but they'll just keep going back there if the belief's there. And that's a hard thing, though, to do, because sometimes the people don't even know they have the belief system, and it is hard to unravel. But do you love it when you talk to somebody and you're like in a conversation with them and you're going, so back up. Are you saying that your parent did this and they had a problem with the husband and the husband had a problem with their parent and that passed to your mom? Yeah. And then it just unravels. Those are the things I like to see, you know what I mean? Because you can do some different testing on individuals and you'll say, well, what about your relationship of like distrust? Okay. Do you have distrust? And you do some muscle testing, like, no, you don't have distrust. Do you have distrust to your mom? No. Do you have it to your dad? No. What about between your mom and dad? They will weaken. They observe distrust between the parent and now they don't trust. And it just starts to accentuate. So I love that aspect of finding those little nuggets and then you start to unravel it. And then I'll tell you, sometimes the funniest is that I will know, and you do too. You'll go, your mom's going to probably call you. I had a guy last week came in and a girl, sorry. And the father was like in her emotional background. I said, I wouldn't be surprised if they called you. She goes, I hadn't talked to him in like 6 years. He butt dialed her.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, there was no coincidence. She called back, thought something was wrong. He's like, oh no. And they started calling. I was like, no, you guys linked up, whether she wanted to talk to him or not. But I guess the energy of the environment wanted that though.
Yeah.
That's my take. That's a long-winded answer.
Wow. And so how, as a practitioner, when you're going in and like some of these things may be completely unconscious, oftentimes are unconscious, how are you approaching that with a patient without them crumbling, or maybe they do crumble and you're just there to support them? Like, what does that actually look like?
That's a good question, because there's some individuals that come in, put up such good walls because they're just protective. And I think as a practitioner, when you walk into the room, you already can feel like the way the environment's going to move when you're working on them. And so you do have to be sensitive in the aspect of like what they can handle. Now, this is the beauty of like acupuncture and Chinese meridians. If you hit the points and touch the points and you feel the energy running through them, you normally know which organ's the most charged and which one's the most weak. So I normally always check heart meridian and pericardium. If their heart's pretty shielded, if it's pretty stagnant in the heart, I'm usually very cautious about how much I go into their unconscious realm. I always try to go with the lowest vibrational aspect of the person first, and I work backwards. I know a lot of times we go, let's go to the biggest one. I don't. My style is I go backwards, because normally I have to have the patient warm up to me. And I tell them your personality will be exactly how your body processes info. You don't trust me right now. And when I tell them like where the aches and pains are at without them telling me, then they open up. That's how I'm not calling them children, but that's how children are. And so they start to trust you, and then they jump on your table and they're like, yeah, just work on me. And I'm like, yes. Okay. So when they start to get really warm and comfortable, and I don't say this lightly, with all my heart, like there's some individuals, like women who've had huge physical trauma and abuse and sexual trauma. And after about 4 visits, you get the pattern and you start to tell them like, but there's something here probably at age 17 that happened. And they're like, and I said, you don't have to tell me anything. I just need you to think about that and let's process it. And then they'll open up. and they'll tell you, and then they trust you. And then a whole bunch of other stuff comes up. And then when they get that wall off the way, then you'll get stuff like the SIBO and the mold. And everybody's like, okay, I trust this guy and it's pretty good now. I can let it open. And I think that's one thing about being a practitioner is just building trust. You can go to a practitioner if you trust them. You go to that guy 100 times more than you go to a guy who's the best guy, the best practitioner you can't build trust with. And one of my mentors always told me, he says, and this is a long time ago, he was an old coach. I used to help with all his children. I used to work on all these runners every weekend. And he used to tell me in his voice, he'd be like, hey, you can't emulate care. You just got to care. He's like, you just have to make that your life, is care about people. And he says, and that will exude. And so I just took it to heart. I was like, even if I feel crappy in a day or something, I'm going to keep caring, you know?
I mean, it definitely exudes from you. That's very clear. And in a genuine way. It's 100%
Thank
genuine.
you.
Yeah.
Oh, you too. I'm in a room full of care. I'm serious. Thank you.
Well, and with that too, I mean, and I've talked about this often lately, is that you are part of the healing equation. Your energy system and the relationship that is developed is actually part of the healing equation. I truly believe that.
Yeah.
Like they're not going to experience what they could, like you said, with someone they trust.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. I think that when you do go in with the aspect of like, you're going to care and listen, the history, Dr. Leibowitz, he's an old mentor of mine. And he always looks at me, he goes, it's all in the history. And the thing that I take from that is with the equation is if you listen, and some patients want to tell me their issues. And so I know the aspect of most practitioners, like, hurry up, get on the table. We got to hurry up and get going because that, and I'll tell them, I'm like, well, listen, I only have this amount of time, but I don't want you to feel rushed. So tell me. And sometimes they'll just want to tell me. I was like, well, I got 25 minutes. I'll go ahead and work on whatever I can. But that aspect of it is like, the more I listen, I realize that our biocomputers are always taking information in all day. And the field from you to me is always exchanging info. The longer I sit with them, they're going to resonate with certain aspects of me and I will with them. So I think the body will like accentuate the waves. It'll amplify the waves that need to be addressed. And so I know that my body will probably say what needs to be said in the session, what they need at that time. And I think that's the equation. And I think too, do you find like the more you do something, of course you get better, but I think listening is an art that you have to get better at. And I'm the worst at it because I get a little ADD. I'm like, okay, I want to get this moving and hurry up and get this out of the way. But I think your biocomputer builds information just like if you put in your computer all these years. And I do believe a person trusts you when they know this guy's been through a lot. Because I've had health problems. I had that 2017, I had a stomach rupture. I had almost died and then had Lyme and stuff. And I realized like all that information is information that you and I are exchanging. And you go, oh, he's been through a lot of hard times too. So I think that the equation, the big piece is like listening, them knowing you've been through a lot and just really, really soaking in all the information. Hopefully your field as a practitioner is large enough because you care and you want warmth that they feel it. And I think it's a big key. I mean, because I've known some good practitioners that were amazing. No knock on them. I'm saying that they just didn't have a big caring energy. They got a lot of work done, but they only attracted a certain type of clientele. So anyway, that's my take on that.
Yeah. I completely agree with you. So with that and that exchange of energy and building that rapport, I've even had an experience with you where you read what was going on with my face and like nailed it immediately. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about that.
We did the talk and it's hard to do in 60 minutes, but when you look at a person's face, like the time we did talk, one of the things that you mentioned to me was about not being on guard, but you were telling me that you were waking up early and you had a lot of individuals around you. Now, you have a great face, pretty face. I'm not, it's knocking on your face.
You're fine.
But like I noticed that you had a little bit of swelling around the eyes because I think there was a lot of internal, not weeping, but there was some grieving that wasn't coming to the surface fully. And so the temples were a little bit swollen. And normally that's related to the spleen. And spleen is related to your lymph flow. And lymph will congest and get thicker because you've had a lot of emotional hits. And the spleen and stomach have to do with covert concern, being worried about people, making sure that they have food when they're at the event, making sure that they get enough rest. I hope they're not going to be upset. We need to get them coffee or something. That's how your nature is. You're caring and you're very logistical. But I knew when the way your eyes were set, I was like, oh, she's getting hit a lot and she's caring too much. And it's like, you're going to give everything away at that trip just from that. And your facial shape is really great because you have a good metal qualities, nice angles. You have like queen face, they would call it, right? And your eyes, the eyebrows tell me how your mom took nutrients while you're in the womb. And so your eyebrows, when they say, people will say, well, what if I put the stuff on your eyebrow? I don't know what that's called.
Botox.
Like, no. That's like the makeup or something on there.
Oh, yeah. Got it.
You can't change the natural angle is you're very intent and very focused. The nose is like mine. You have a little divot here. So you have intent focused eyes, which means I can see right through people. I know if you're lying to me. And your nose is it's like mine, pointed, and you have a slight divot. What that usually means is the heart is not hardened physically. Now, it could in long run, but your heart could be a little bit walled off because I'm not going to let too many people in. That's why you can smell a rat. You can smell somebody who's fake.
And you're like that? Your heart's so open.
I would say I
or think, you just like me.
No. I think that I have that. I usually think people say that I give people a lot of benefit of the doubt. I've always been that way. But I think over the years, I've had to just be open. And it's taught me that. And that's a good thing. But normally I'm very walled off. People wouldn't think that. When I was younger, I was very, I'd be by myself. I like being by myself. But I had to learn how to be other. And so when you look at the face, like lines, you have falling lines. Like you have a really good line right here on the right side, which means your mom had a lot of adrenal stress probably. And she probably overthought and maybe over worried. And you're the one who would calm her down. Completely, right? And you see that. And like lines underneath the eyes, you don't have horrible lines, and like you have a little darkness underneath the eyes. That means that your adrenals are a little overcharged and they're working a little harder than you need to. So you would always take the facial map of a person and say you have intention, you can smell her out, and you have really good angles, which makes you a good leader. But you're going to have the hard job because you can know if somebody's not doing something, and you have to have enough boundaries that you could be the leader. Now, one thing though is like a person who has a good water quality, you are the metal that actually feeds into the water. So you actually put minerals into the water, makes mineralized water, which then goes to wood, which makes me grow. So if you have those people you feed into, find a lot of water people, they'll absorb everything you got. And then find the wood people, and that water person tells the wood person what to do. So you look at a person's face, and that's how you situate. Cheeks, when they are nice and round and they go about, it means that you can smell opportunity. Like, when opportunity arises. And that's why you would say, like, you can see, really, that's what they'll teach in facial diagnosis. And when you smile though, right side's like your right side eye is like your mom has some, but I'm not saying that she would smile just because people are around her, but I think that internally she was a little distraught.
People pleaser?
Yeah. And she would always want to make sure everything was okay with everybody else so that she felt good about it. Dad was a little more intentional. You think your dad was like, I think he could have been a little more solemn in the aspects, and that's how they were together. Were they together long?
Wow, that's so fascinating. They stayed together. I mean, my dad built a house in the backyard when I was in 7th grade.
Yeah.
So they lived separate, but they stayed together until for 26 years, 25 years.
Yeah. I would say because your left eye is very analyzing. Your right side is very pleasing. So you're going to please everybody, but you're going to be very analyzing. So your dad probably got a little overworked by your mom, just a bit. I'm not saying nothing against mom.
We'll make sure.
Don't want mom or dad. Don't worry. I'm just mom. I'm saying this. It means that you're a people pleaser. I get it. Mm-hmm. But he probably kind of good. Like that probably pushed him a little bit. And that's why. That's my opinion.
So fascinating.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing?
Should have done that yesterday. I should have had you come up on stage and do that. But
yeah. Well, luckily we'll get this out so everyone can watch it and really understand. Anything I maybe don't want to hear you see?
No.
Let's go. What is it?
You don't pick the part but the strength is, okay, so if you have metal quality, you want to accentuate, metal has to do with lung and large intestine. So you always need to make sure that you feed the organs so they detoxify the people out of their lives. So that means that your lungs breathe out carbon dioxide, it breathes out toxins, your colon poops it out, which means you possibly could have the tendency to hold on to old relationships longer than you really should have. So I would suspect,
obviously,
yeah, you've had maybe relationships in your life and you go, I held on to that way too long. Why? Because you worked those detox organs to the max. So I would say that you could hold on to relationships a lot longer that need to be held on to. And if a person is very toxic to you, you probably need to learn, you're not saying you haven't learned, but to get rid of it quicker than later. It means that you could have a field around you that, remember, lungs and large intestine have everything to do with grief, sadness, crying, controlling to feel safe, which means that you could attract those individuals that could do that to you. So you could have people in your life, right, that came and wanted to control you. And then people that were always grieving or sad, people that are always like, had their own grief and trauma, but you don't have time for that. You're like, oh, I've got my own stuff. And so they be attracted to you. So I just say, like, negative is like, just build that field up to where you keep strengthening your lung and large intestine, which means herbals, Chinese formulas, homeopathy, Des Bio, get that large intestine and lung. And you'll think, well, I don't have lung issues. Guarantee it, though. If you took a lung opener, you could go back and go, why do I sigh all the time now? Why do I breathe in? And you start to see that field, and you'll actually feel tight, and you'll actually have old mycoplasma, old pneumonia start to come to the surface, which is a good thing. Mm-hmm. But that's what I'd pick you apart with.
Wow.
I know it's a little
fascinating.
too much.
No, not at all. I'm open. I asked for it.
Yeah, no negatives. You're just learning experiences.
No negatives. Yes. So how is it when you're with patients? Is that something you actually verbalize, or you take that, or you're just kind of reading them to decide how open and willing and how far you can actually go with that conversation?
Bingo. I think that you read their face pretty well, and you can see from their eyes, the intention of their eyes, which side's a little bit more dominant in their time of life. Are they taking more after their dad or taking more after their mom, or the males or females in their lives? And you can sort of get a good feel. First time when a person comes in, I'm not bragging or anything, but like usually right off the bat, I'm like, I got an idea. Because you do it enough, you see it, and then you'll test the points and you'll see which part's the weakest. That kind of gives me an idea of what they're willing to open up to. I do think that patients and clients love it whenever you can give them a little info. And you don't do it in a condescending way, like, oh, you got trauma based from your family.
You pick bad relationships, Nicole.
Yeah, you.
You said it
that
so
last
graciously.
one was a doozy. No, sorry, no, that's horrible. No,
yeah.
But when you say that, does the energy around you that you find yourself attracting these type of individuals? And they're like, yeah. And then if you feel that they're going, they kind of lock up. You're like, okay, we need to go to the next point. And so you kind of just sort of ask questions in that way. You just got to get them feeling comfortable with it. Yeah.
And with you saying that a lot of this comes generationally, mm-hmm. when you're working, I mean, you did say when you have a child, you often invite the parent in to also get mm-hmm. treated. Are you seeing that when you work on a child, it also heals the mother, or when you heal the mother, it also heals the child? Or are you also needing to work on them separately, or do you actually see that when that field changes, it actually changes the other?
Definitely yes, to what you just said, all of it. I think that when a child comes in and you do clear them, you'll naturally create the resonant frequency, and that child will send that signal to the mom, even to the dad, and they'll all flush. And I've had that happen many times, especially with homeopathy. I know the practitioners out here have done it too. So if I found strep or staph or some kind of infection, I'll start clearing the child. And then the mother will say something like, and I started getting a cough too. And I don't understand, like I'm starting to get these little rashes that come up. And so the baby's energy, it depends too. If the baby got a lot of exact quote DNA strands from the mother, like exact ones in the epigenetics in their environment, that baby makes the baby emulate the mom quite a bit. A lot of resonance between, a lot of connectivity. But I would say when a baby has a really bad issue and we start cleaning them out, I naturally start giving the mother the remedy. But this is cool though. A parent's been through so much more in their life, and they have a bigger biocomputer full of info. And the hard part is like the body will adapt all this time, and the body will use different infections to help the body cope. So you start clearing the mother out of the same thing the baby has, and then the mother opens up like a lot of stuff. So you have to double check the mother and the father. So when I clear the baby or start working on them, then the mother gets on there and I'm like, oh my word, like there's a lot more. This baby's trying to protect you. This baby's trying to pull a lot of that energy from you. And the baby's doing that in the womb. And you see the protective energy of a baby. They don't want the host to be upset with them. and they want to be protected and comforted. And so I try to clear the mother and the father out as much as I can. So the baby. So when they set an appointment and they'll say, I want to bring my child in. I'm like, parents are going to have to get, because I read the parents' faces when they come in. And it's the funniest thing is that whenever you start working on the parent, you'll go, definitely now I see why the baby has this, or the child. So I can go through a lot of stories, but it's a family thing, especially whenever, like I had a picture of that little girl that had those rashes on her face. All the kids had the same infection. The mother had it, but the dad had it heavy. But the dad wasn't ready to open up to that. He's like, oh, I'm fine. I don't have any rashes. I'm cool.
I was going to ask about that. Like, is there a chain you see where obviously they go to the child most easily?
Yeah.
And then is it the mother and then the mother and then the father? Like, is there a natural flow there?
Normally,
typically?
I would say a natural is like you always for the mother, because I mean, they encase the baby for that long. But if I do meet the father, no knock against men or at all, but more of the time, like if they have a protective provision kind of mentality, most of the times the guys will come in like, oh, I'm fine. There's no problem with me. I can drink water and take no supplements and I'm fine. It's always like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I literally have guys that will brag that they go to twice daily gas stations and get the pizzas and eat them. They're like, I take a 15-minute nap and I'm okay. And I'm like, no, you got a lot of yeast that's really resonating with your kid. So when the mother gets cleaned up, I always say that if the dad wasn't necessarily willing to like clear up, I can't do anything necessarily with that. So it's the natural flow. What you do, here's a little hack, is that you find out if the man has a physical structural issue. Because men always go with the structural. They want something done quick and fast. I want it done in like 2 visits. So then you look at them and you'll say, well, you have something going on with your lungs. Okay.
So we're not going to do grief. We're just going to.
No grief. You know it's there.
Yep. Structural.
Yeah.
Got it.
But I know that the muscles in his shoulders are going to be off. And I know he's always going to have to be adjusted in his upper back. So I was like, do this always go out? And you're like, yeah. And I was like, well, I said, you work out hard because you can't breathe very well. Yeah. And that's where you go in. And you work on the structure. And then naturally the grief comes up. And then you can take the homeopathic without them really knowing it at times and just clean it up.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that. How often do you have women possibly dosing their significant other
all the time.
Privately?
All the
we
time.
get asked that all the time.
Just take it and drink it.
Yeah.
It's fine. No, I truly, at times I know this is, this does not sound sexist or anything, picking sides. I'm just saying experience where, normally the females are always like having a cupboard full of homeopathics and supplements because they're just trying to make sure like things are fixed. And then the men are like, why do we have a whole cupboard full of supplements? They don't need all that. And I just think that the intricacies of seeing how the protective aspects of a female compared to a male side, and you just have to learn how to work it. Now that's hard because when it's a baby or a child involved, it's like this child could have a ton from the father and he needs to get that fixed. So how does the wife or the partner tell the man? I usually have them, they'll just tell the man, like, you're taking this. Mm-hmm. I have no say in that. I try to say, like, I'm not in that. You guys can do this. But I think that the more you talk to the female, they'll know that that there is grief there. Because you'll get into into conversation and they're both sitting right there and you'll be saying something to them. I'm like, well, the child could have some grief in the lungs. It could be from the mom or the dad and then the woman always looks over and goes, yeah, your fam. Okay. And then I'm like in the middle of it. I'm like, okay, let's not get into looking at each other and stuff. But it is that whole union of like information. I think it's funny though.
Gosh, that's got to be so fascinating to watch and sitting there with the whole family.
It is. And what will happen is if you get one of the kids feeling better, the mom starts feeling better, then everybody will want to come in. I don't like to have a rule over like 2 people in the room. But I've had times where families of 6 want to come into this small room. I'm like, I cannot have all this energy in one room.
Wow.
But then their lights go off. And when the man gets and the mother and the husband they get to the point where they're like, or father or whatever, partners, whenever they get to a point where they start to see it in their kids, what I have found though is that they see it and they see how much that their kid emulated them. And they'll go, That's just like I did when I was a kid. And that's the light bulb a lot of times for the parent, both of them. And I think it's really cool. Like for me as a practitioner, as you learn as a practitioner, I'm not only just hearing what the baby has. I ask the parents a lot when they come in. That's my natural tendency. Yeah. So.
Well, and typically, do you see that men need something like that? Oftentimes a catastrophic event is what it takes for a man to be willing to do something like that. But like, I know my father was total man's man,
Mm-hmm.
but if there was something going on with me,
Mm-hmm.
he would have moved heaven and earth.
Yep.
So if
exactly
they're
right.
able to see it through their child and say, oh, whoa, I was trying to correct X, Y, and Z from my father, but if it's reflecting here, okay. And whether they maybe admit it verbally or not,
Yep.
just probably the opening of that
is
fabric
I'm
or
telling
possibility.
You explained it perfectly. That's exactly what happens. And I think that it hits home with the guy when, for instance, if the kid had a tendency and he'll open up and go, oh, that's exactly what happened between me and my parents. And those are the times when they're really like, yeah, we need to because I don't want this kid to go through the things that I went through. And so with men in general, exactly, move heaven and earth. They're like, I don't care about myself. I just want them to be fixed because my life will feel better. I'll feel happier when my wife or my lady's happy or, my partner's happy or whatever. And my kids are happy, but you do see it open up to them. And I really do enjoy that when they start telling me their story. And that's one of the whole goals of, I think, of healing as a family is they all really open up because I've had so many times, like literally where the men will see it and they start to open up and it becomes like a spigot and then they just open up and they come in and they're by themselves like, I couldn't have my family here, but this is what's happening. And to the point where like with men at times, not all men, they'll either have a bad relationship with the parents and they never want to be like them, but it still builds up the frustration and resentment over the years and they start to trigger that epigenetic part of their DNA and they start kind of responding like their parent. And they're like, and this is what I'm just starting to do just like my dad did when he turned 50. And that's the aha moments that we all need, actually. Yeah. So it does happen all those ways you talked about.
So when you're in practice and you're seeing all of this transformation, is there anything for you right now that you feel like is your legacy, or it is like, man, this is my driving force right now? This is what I'm deeply passionate about.
That's a great question. I think in practice, personally and selfishly, I would say legacy would be, I'd hope that there's other practitioners and other health centered individuals that whatever I want them to learn from me is never fear-based. It really is like your legacy, because so much healing is based upon like, I'm afraid this has happened and I can't ever get out of this. And I'm not saying we can get everything healed up, but I would just want to be a practitioner and help other practitioners approach people and saying, don't base it on fear. Give yourself a lot of grace. And healing, if you do it in the right, like in my opinion, it can be simple in some ways. So my legacy would be like teaching guys who come in and monitor, or they just observe, and showing them simple pathways to find a story. And that's the only thing that I think I could leave in as a legacy is like, hopefully I can tell, like the facial reading or the body. It's like people's stories will tell you what their health is doing, and everybody has it. So I know you want to get a lab, and I love labs. I do them all the time. And you want this individual, everything specified. But I would want you to know that you can look at somebody. You can look at their body posture. You can look at their daily habits. You can listen to the words they say, and they will tell you 90% of what's going on. That's what I would hope I could teach like other practitioners, like legacy per se. Like, I never really thought about like what I would want to do with all this. I mean, I just want to like teach. I like to teach. That would be my legacy. Yeah. With that, not very climactic, but yes, that's what I would think.
It is. I mean, what you're doing is very profound. And I don't know anyone, when I was a little girl, my mom took me to someone and they measured like everything on my body and then wrote out what my body represented in personality.
Yeah.
And that's, 40 something years ago.
That's awesome.
And I don't know anyone. You're probably the only other person I've met who really looks at it the way you do. I mean, is there anyone who's really doing this?
Yeah, I would say that's another point. Side note, when you say legacy, it's like when we talk about frequency-based energetics in medicine, that, it's been around since it's been going on for eons. I mean, time, we know that there's frequency-based practitioners. I would love to see it even come more and more to the surface because, like you just said, the body is emitting fields and that field is just info. It's just like me writing it on a piece of paper, like your body's emitting the sound. So is there other people? There are a few, like my mentor, Dr. Milton Dowdy out of Wichita. He's really great. And he was doing electronic medicine back in when he first started, like in the early 80s and late 70s. And like you said, he was taking microcurrents and cleaning up infections out of people. And he was thinking there could be a world that's based upon using current and frequency, like some of the old practitioners, to heal the body, to analyze it in that way with frequency. He has frequency scanning and he uses these hand modes and he uses different things. He's one of the mentors for me. And do we do it exactly the same? No, but I get a lot of my basis from him and other practitioners. I would say, and this is not bragging again, I think that I'm a nerd. That's the caveat. I'm a nerd about finding the points. And then when we find the info about the organ, and then you find the infections, I then like to try to tie it with emotions, which many practitioners do. But I do think I like to find all the connected pieces. That's why my sessions are too long, because I'll go back and I'll try to find every small little caveat. And I'd say that that's maybe what I do. That's maybe a little different. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of people that do that, but I will always call it fascial pointing. If I find a point on your large intestine meridian, I will scan to see which other points are always associated with that one point. And the best part is when you find points that don't make sense. Those are the best times. I'm like, that makes no sense. And then you do 2 more sessions and it pops up. So I found something in 2 sessions back and I go, oh, then I tie the information from back here to this one. And then it makes sense. So you have this book of information in your head. You go, now I know why that originally hits. And so that's maybe how I look at it. Because I mean, honestly, like in acupuncture, and there's a lot of different practitioners. I know if you guys do the same as I do, message us, comment. I'm not saying I'm special. I'm saying
you are special, but they can be special too.
Definitely. And when you put a needle in somewhere, I know that in acupuncture, it's like if you have this thing on the tongue or the wrist, just hit these patterns. And they've thought about those things a lot. I think that I wish each point had explanations behind it, which a lot of times they don't. It's just like, do this pattern and it should fix it. Whereas I like to go through each point and find out. That's the nerd aspect. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's a long-winded answer, but
no,
yeah.
You're great. Do you also find every once in a while that the macro affects the micro? So do you find correlation between what's going on out in the world and then see certain patterns in practice?
It is, that's one of my favorite lines. I'm just saying, I say whatever happens on the macro happens on the micro, especially weather changes, or, I mean, if we can go that far, even energetic changes in the shift in the star patterns. And I know that a lot of people out there study those, but what you'll find is the energetic movement with even a region. If you're in Scottsdale or if you're in Nashville, what will happen is there's a different energy of people that are in that area as compared to somebody who flies in. And not only will they could have a different representation of that energy. This person can have a different type of viruses as compared to here. But I always tell people that I always say that the body parts are always emulations of what's going on in your environment. And so what I do is I'll pay attention to weather patterns. I pay attention to rain. I pay attention to the earth quality. I mean, really, literally things like that. So if your stomach was always disrupted, and I know what area of the world you're in, I know the stomach has to do with earth. So then I always go to the earth element and I'll go, what's going on with your dirt? What dirt in your area and stuff like that. So you start getting these correlations about the element, and they'll usually say, well, there's nothing wrong. Okay. So then I'm like, all right, well, I'll do my checks and I'll say something like, oh, I find pesticides. And I found crazy heavy metals. They go get a metal test and it's just off the wall. Never, not getting the vaccination talk, but they're saying never had a vaccination. And I'm like, well, how in the world did you get beryllium and how'd you get cadmium and all this in your body? It's in their area. And then you check them and I go, well, did you live downstream from any factories 100%. They're all like, yep. Were you raised in a farmland? Yes. Did you? So you see it like if it was the same with the lungs or the bladder, you find out where they live, you go to the element. The macro always affects the micro. And spiritually speaking too. And I know that people but in the spiritual aspect, whether people's beliefs are, I get very careful when I talk about it, but there's spiritual aspects of life, in my opinion, that will influence individuals. And it can be in a generational family line, and it can go back pretty far. So when a patient comes in and let's say things are clear in certain patterns. So I find certain patterns on individuals, but there are certain patterns, and I don't want to get into the whole gist of it. I'm like, that's a spiritual component. And I'm not a counselor or therapist, and I'm not a spiritual speaker or anything of that sort. But what you will do is that there could be an energetic quality of, like, let's say rage or energetic of grief that's just over their whole family. And so it's just on top of them, like the cloud on, a pig pen in Charlie Brown. And so some people say, well, do I live with that? I'm like, no, there's ways I think you can actually acknowledge it and get it. But I know it's a lot for me to say, but I'm always paying attention because they say what's happening in our world, even like world events. I don't take that into like just pushing that away. If there's wars and there's all this stuff going on, I'm telling you, people's minds and mindsets change. And this is going pretty far. And I think some of the guys out there maybe would agree. But that kind of frequency will accentuate certain infections. It'll accentuate your miasms.
Mm-hmm.
And so when things change, it is so crazy sometimes. I'm getting on a soapbox, but you'll check somebody and then an event will happen and then they'll all have the same viruses come up. Oh, the same bacteria. I'm like, how in the world did all that? We had, I don't want to get too, we had certain infections show up around Nashville at time, and it happened at a certain event. And I thought, did that frequency go in and agitate that infection and bring it to the surface? Possibly, but I use homeopathics to clear it out. So if you're a practitioner and don't know what's going on, remember, macro always affects the micro. Everything is emulated in our world. Heart, lungs, they all emulate elements. Study your elements. That was a lot.
No, it's great. It's great. Is there anything, what is one thing that is like pretty common out there, even in the natural health space, that you would like disagree with or have like a different point of view?
Well,
that you're passionate about?
Really passionate about. There's a few. I think now, and I have a lot of friends in this realm, so I'm not talking about, but I think that I love the aspect of longevity, and I think it's brilliant and it's beautiful. There's two ways to look at it. When, some aspects will say, I've thought this way, like you have to have energy to make your cells run. You have to have energy, and you can't clean your body if you don't have energy. And so this is a big one. It's like you take a lot of the supplements to get the cells energized, which is valid and it works. But there's also the aspect is that if you have an infection that's generationally coming down the line, that infection could be munching on your nutrients, taking those vitamins and minerals, using ATP pumps to siphon ATP at certain times of the day and running away, then coming back. We know those, and stuff that's creating mucus around your cells. And if you don't necessarily kill those off, you won't absorb the nutrients that should help you have energy. That's why I love homeopathics, because the thing is, like, you can, if you have enough of this energy builder, that you have enough energy to run. And I'm like, no, if this generational bacteria or something is in the line and the cell has a memory of it and it sticks around, you're not going to create a lot of energy, in my opinion. So I say not disagree, but there's times where I'm like, you have to get the memory of the cell to operate. And because I think in healthcare, we always keep it on really a structural physical format, where we think that, and Melissa comes in and she has an infection. I'm like, we'll just take this, get rid of the infection. But what if your cells have a memory of it? Keeps remembering, and it's going to keep responding as though you had the infection. We know that because we're at this conference. But if I do clear it out, even with herbs, and she still has the memory, she's just going to come back with the same thing 3 months later. It's the same thing. It's like, I can give you even all herbs if I want to. But you have to clear your memory out. So I say disagree. It's like healthcare you got to get the memory of the cells to operate and the energetics of it. So that's my caveat there.
Yeah. I love it. Well, thank you so much wow, time just flies by with you.
I mean, we had a great convo, and I know this is going to be your favorite podcast of this.
It is.
They're about to like, oh my word, please just get out. No, it's kidding.
Well, thank you.
Thank you
so much.
Oh.
You're just such a gem, such a gift.
Oh, stop. Thank you.
No,
you
you
are.
are.
I really do appreciate, and I say this like, the more we know each other, I really appreciate because with Des Bio, and I'm saying as a person that your heart shows through, and even how you treat the individuals here at the conference, and so it's like a big, literally a conglomeration of people that love and care not only about health, but you can tell people really care about each other, very supportive. So thank you for putting this together.
Yeah,
Appreciate it so
absolutely.
much. Thank you.
Thank you for being, and thank you everyone for joining us here today. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you on the next episode.